The CNN interview took the wind out of my sails. Oh, you telling me that the Democrats shifting right on messaging after winning the primary isn't an effective strategy for maintaining the enthusiasm that catapulted Kamala Harris ahead in the polls in the first place? Are you telling me the long-honored Democrat tradition of appealing to the right, aka people who will never vote for them, doesn't work that well? You kidding me? Why do they keep doing this? Well, they're Democrats, so, you know.
If you are elected, what would you do on day one in the White House?
Well, there are a number of things. I will tell you, first and foremost, one of my highest priorities is to do what we can to support and strengthen the middle class.
The moderate voter caused this. Hold on. I don't think there's any such thing as a moderate voter. I only think there's a such thing as a median voter. If you talk to a median voter in America, they're not like neutral. They actually have wildly divergent opinions on a bunch of different issues, and a lot of them are borderline radical. I genuinely think if you sat the median voter down and talked to them for 5 minutes, some of the opinions they would have would be borderline like openly fascist or openly communistic. You know what I mean? Like, it's not coherent. It's just all over the place. How? Talk to them. Talk to, like, the average American. You will get a lot of people who are like, oh, guillotine the landlords. And they're not leftists. They just don't like landlords. Or people who are like, yeah, you know, I think cops are all, like, terrible or whatever. But then you find out that they're, you know, politically disengaged and they don't believe in leftism because something vuvuzela, right? Or, on the other hand, you'll have people who are, like, not Republican leaning, but they think that Mexico is invading our like, it's crazy how much weird shit there is in the so-called like median voter framework, people who aren't leaning either way. And the strategy should be leaning into the stuff that gets people enthusiastic about voting for you, not desperately trying to like appeal to this mythical contingent of voters who are right-leaning enough that they would consider voting for a fascist, but might be swayed if you just get a little bit more reactionary on some issues.
I think, sadly, in the last decade, we have had in the former president someone who has really been pushing an agenda and in an environment that is about diminishing the character and the strength of who we are as Americans, really dividing our nation, and I think people are ready to turn the page on that.
I think this rhetoric is really boring and really weak too. I think she should just say, like, you know, he's a contemptuous, arrogant asshole who only cares about himself and is screwing over the working class.
One of your campaign themes is we're not going back. But I wonder what you say to voters who do want to go back when it comes to the economy specifically, because their groceries were less expensive, housing was more affordable when Donald Trump was president.
Well, let's start.
The problem from Kamala Harris's perspective here is that there is literally no answer to this outside of an explicitly anti-capitalist one. You can frame this as much as you want as like, oh, we're going to combat price gouging or whatever, but the truth of the matter is anytime there's a perceived economic crisis or a real one, corporations are going to take advantage of it by gouging prices. This is not lefty conjecture. They have literally admitted to it. I think Kroger's CEO admitted to it just the other, wasn't it literally like 3 days ago? This is 1 day ago. This happens all the time, you know? It's not like, yeah, it's not like crazy leftist conjecture. So, like, there's no, and the problem is, like, again, from Kamala Harris's perspective, you can only go after that so much before you just are critiquing capitalism, and there's just, and I'm not saying, I want to make it clear, I'm not approaching this from a conspiratorial framework, like, oh, you can't mention capitalism or they'll come for you or whatever. It's just, it's a little bit too esoteric for the average voter. The average voter doesn't want to hear these, like, sweeping ideological claims from a president. They want to hear something that sounds like a common sense, folksy solution, you know? The average American thinks that the president has a button they can press to bring down prices. And if you present a solution to them that makes it sound like you'd have to do a little bit of thinking, like, why is this happening? I think a lot of people kind of lose, you know, they lose track of the plot.
Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
In 2019, I
Wrong
believe...
answer. Sorry, you're not winning Pennsylvania if you say you're going to ban fracking.
At a town hall, you said, you were asked, would you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking on your first day in office? And you said, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes. So it changed in that campaign?
In 2020, I made very clear where I stand. We are in 2024, and I've not changed that position, nor will I going forward.
And this is like the inherent weakness of kowtowing to corporatist policies, and you know, when you become part of the establishment, which is that it just makes you look weak and shiftless, which most politicians are, except for people like Bernie Sanders, I suppose. But yeah, it makes you look pretty weak, you know?
I kept my word, and I will keep my word.
What made you change that position at the time?
Well, let's be clear. My values have not changed.
Kamala's allowing the media to create a narrative that she's a flip-flopper. Okay, in fairness, she objectively flip-flopped on this issue. She is, like, just another politician who shifts her positions to suit what the needs of the party are, you know? This is like a kind of authenticity that Donald Trump has always had, in that he lies constantly and goes back on his base, but he does so in a kind of, let's say, spiritually consistent way, if that makes any sense. Like The Liar You Know, it comes across as a little bit more personally motivated than, you know, a politician who... Like, Kamala Harris doesn't even want to acknowledge that she ever supported a ban on fracking, you know? Look at how uncomfortable she looked here. Did you say Trump has authenticity? I can lead you to the water, I can't force you to drink, okay? You're free to interpret my statement however you want.
That actually increased leases for fracking as vice president. So I'm very clear about where I stand.
And was there some policy or scientific data that you saw that you said, oh, okay, I get it now?
What I have seen is that we can grow and we can increase a thriving clean energy economy without banning fracking.
Okay.
Makes zero sense. I will never forgive, I don't know, the establishment, the leadership, whatever. I will never forgive this country for the fact that we did not become the dominant power in green energy. We could, with our like manufacturing and innovative capabilities, we could have become not only completely sustained by renewable energy, we could have been the world supplier. We could have literally been like the salesman to the entire planet. We could have had India, China, the Philippines, everyone eating out of the palm of our hand. Obviously, in my perfect world, we would have just given them the technology and subsidized it for free, because they're suffering disproportionately the consequences of climate change that we benefited from more by early industrialization. But in reality, we would have sold it to them. And we could have. We could have sold a lot to them. But no, we don't get to do that. We don't get to do that because, like, half of our political will is completely led around by the nose by fossil fuel companies.
I want to ask you about your opponent, Donald Trump.
Okay.
He suggested that you happened to turn black recently for political purposes, questioning a core part of your identity.
Yeah.
Any...
Same old tired playbook. Next question, please.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay.
Do I like that? I guess I do. Yeah, I guess so. I guess laughing it off is probably... Yeah, I think laughing it off is probably better than, like, an attempt to actually engage with it. Maybe being a little bit more contemptuous, I feel. Like, what does that even mean? He's lost his mind? What is he talking about? Like, I don't know. But, yeah.
Forward and turn the page on the last decade of what I believe has been... contrary to where the spirit of our country really lies.
But the last decade, of course, the last 3.5 years has been part of your administration.
I'm talking about an era that started about a decade ago, where there is some suggestion, warped I believe it to be, that the measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you beat down, instead of where I believe most Americans are, which is to believe that the true measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up. That's what...
Again, it's meaningless aphorisms like this that really bug me, and I just don't think most people resonate with it at all, you know? I think, like, speak plainly. This is what people like about Tim Walz, you know? The true measure of a leader is a person who lives... Like, no, just say, like, I'm for the working class. He's for the corporations. He lies constantly, threatens violence, and attempted insurrection. Like, it's... I don't know. It's also what people like about Trump. It's just American, man. Americans like direct, plain-speaking, charismatic people. Even Obama did decently well with this. Like, Obama was no stranger to the liberal, flowery prose. He did that plenty, don't get me wrong. But for the most part, Obama's biggest moments rhetorically were him just speaking down to earth and plain. He was incredibly, let me be clear, you know? He's clear! And Biden's most hard-hitting moments were when he stopped with the liberal, you know, flowery aphorist bullshit, and he just spoke plainly. Everyone likes that. Nobody remembers these speeches where they go off about how the heart of the soul of the founding of the America is the spirit of the cause of the dream of the pursuit of freedom. It's like no one gives a shit. No one cares. Trump is infinitely memorable in large part because he just says stuff.
The photograph that has gone viral. You were speaking, one of your grandnieces that you were just talking about was watching
that
you
photograph
accept
sucks.
the nomination. You didn't explicitly talk about gender or race in your speech, but it obviously means a lot to a lot of people, and that viral picture really says it. What does it mean to you?
You know, I am running because I believe that I am the best person to do this job at this moment.
It really is remarkable how, like, I've criticized Harris plenty during this. It really is remarkable how, like, lacking in substance this interview is. You're getting an exclusive sit-down interview with the presidential and vice presidential candidates, and it's just like, it's so weak, dude. The interviewer is so sauceless and brought the worst questions.
For all Americans, regardless of race and gender. But I did see that photograph, and I was deeply touched by it. And you're right, it's the back of her head, her two little braids, and then I'm in the front of the photograph, obviously speaking. And
Jesus Christ, Kamala.
It's very humbling. It's very humbling in many ways.
Did she talk to you about it afterwards?
Oh, she had a lot to talk about. She had a lot. She listened to everything, and she listens to everything.
Give you your hot takes?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Madam Vice President, Governor Walz, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana. Thank you.
That fucking sucked. Shut up.
Madam Vice President, Governor Walz.
Back to part one. That sucked, man. That was terrible. Not any worse than Trump or Vance. I don't know why pit two bad bitches against each other. Oh wait, they're running against each other. Okay, never mind. That's not the comparison I'm making, okay? You can't respond to every criticism of Kamala Harris with, well, Trump and Vance are worse. We know they're worse. Don't put me in the cycle where every time I criticize them, the people in chat are like, wait, I don't understand. Does this mean that Vaush is supporting Trump? Like, we're not doing that again, okay?